Hey, everybody, welcome back into Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We were privileged to spend a couple of segments with the Senator of the great state of Louisiana, Mr. John Kennedy. Senator John Kennedy, hey, thanks so much for joining us and not forgetting about us folks down here down the Bayou. So, man, appreciate it. I know it's a busy time. Anything going on in Washington right now?
Well, I would never forget my people down the bayou. Yeah, there's a lot going on up here. A lot of jackassery and crazy stuff. People say, "What's the purpose for serving in the Senate, and what's the Senate's job?" The Senate's job is to advance good ideas, but also to kill bad ideas. And so I try to spend a lot of time doing both, Harry.
Look, they've become viral videos, and I enjoy watching it like I watch football sometimes when you're interviewing some appointees, judges, airlines, bankers, or whatever. That seems to give you a little pleasure, too, to be prepared for interview for people that don't seem very prepared. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, everybody's busy. And a lot of the times the questions that we're asking have to do with taxpayer money. And the American people deserve straight answers. They don't deserve a word salad without the dressing. And I try to insist that people that I'm talking to give me straight answers, not so much for me, but for the American people.
Right.
I try not to be rude, but I'm pretty firm.
No, those are great. Sometimes when they go like 0 for 5 and something they're trying to be the head of the department, it seems it's kind of funny. And you pointed out well. Well, let's start with money.
We've got. Let me just say this, Harry. We've got a lot of people in Washington D.C. who speak fluent BS, and part of my job is to hold them accountable.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with money. And Janet Yellen, I guess, talked yesterday about the debt ceiling. We may be defaulting by June 1st. It seems that's going to be the next big battle on Capitol Hill. Tell us about that, because it seems like the House has passed one version, and when it gets to the Senate is where the fireworks will start.
Well, number one, Secretary Yellen, for whom I have great respect, is a politician. Her June 1 deadline is a political deadline. Realistically, I think it's more like August, maybe September. That's point one. Point two, no fair-minded person wants to default on America's debt. I don't. Now, I didn't vote for a lot of this debt, but it was legally incurred. I was outvoted. And since we incurred it, we've got to pay it. It's just that simple. Number three, at the same time, we've got to do things that stop us from getting in this circumstance again. We have to slow the rate of growth of spending and debt accumulation, if for no other reason than to stop inflation. And President Biden for months has said, I refuse to talk to you folks who want to reduce the size of government. His mantra is, we can't possibly spend too much. And the Republicans don't have a plan. Well, we have a plan now. And it passed the House of Representatives. In fact, it's the only plan. President Biden doesn't have a plan. But yet, until recently, he's been refusing to sit down and negotiate and talk about how we can reduce the rate of growth of spending and debt. But I'm pleased to say he's relented, and he's going to have a meeting. I don't know how productive it will be, but I'm hoping the president and the Speaker of the House will sit down and have an adult discussion about how to allocate scarce resources that belong to taxpayers.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you're in the Senate Banking Committee, and I'm reading a couple of things you're talking about most lately is federal companies, CEOs, that kind of stuff that might be selling stock right before a company, basically insider trading.
Yeah.
They'll sell all their stock right before the stock hits rock bottom. And you want to do certain things where you're not allowed to do that?
Well, if I'm an American president of an American company and I decide to sell some of my company stock, I've got to notify the SEC within 2 days and have it posted on the internet. But if I'm the president of a Chinese company, for example, or a foreign company, I don't have to do that. I have to just send a letter within 90 days. And I just want our CEOs of foreign companies, including but not limited to Chinese companies, to play by the same rules as American insiders. Why is it important? Because if the president of a company starts to sell his stock, other people who own that stock need to know that.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that something's wrong with the company, but it could mean that.
Yeah.
And right now, American presidents have to do that, but Chinese presidents of companies listed on American exchanges don't. And that doesn't seem fair to me.
Yeah.
And I've introduced a bipartisan bill with a Democratic senator, Senator Van Hollen from Maryland, who's a friend of mine, and I think it's going to pass.
Yeah, we saw that with Alibaba. I guess that was a real big thing where they saved a lot of money for sure. So
Alibaba, a Chinese company, an insider there, sold $150 million worth of his stock based on inside information and didn't announce it. And 2 days later, the stock dropped 8%.
Right.
So he saved a lot of money.
Right.
Those losses had to be borne in part by American shareholders.
Sure. And the CCP was behind a lot of
that. They've been smoking the devil's lettuce, I think, Harry. They decided that they went and hired a company called Milliman to develop an algorithm that supposedly can look at your property and predict over the next decade whether it's going to flood. There's just one problem. They won't show us their secret sauce, the algorithm, to let us know how they do that. We don't even know if they're taking account of our levees.
That's it.
And they're raising people's flood insurance at the rate of 18% a year with no ceiling in sight. And it's not like flood insurance is a luxury. Mm-hmm. Most people who buy homes have to take out a mortgage.
Correct. And
the mortgage company requires you to have flood insurance. So when these flood insurance premiums are going from $500 and $600 to $5,000 and $6,000, people can't afford that. So they have to choose. That people are going to lose their homes. I've introduced a bill to try to fix this problem. I understand that everybody has flood risk who lives near the water. And by the way, 50% of the American people and American businesses live near water. I get all that. But what's the point of flood insurance if nobody can afford it? And there's some changes we can make in the flood insurance program that'll save a lot of money that will reduce these flood insurance premium increases. And I've tried to talk to FEMA. FEMA will not listen. It's like talking to a dead stump. Mm-hmm. And the only person that can really stop them is President Biden. He refuses to.
Right.
Now, I've introduced a bill, but I've got to get Democratic votes to pass it. And as long as President Biden insists on doing this, basically throwing people out of their homes, I can't pass the bill.
Right.
So if President Biden's listening to your show, Harry, and he ought to be if he isn't, I wish he would just stop and talk to us and let us explain to him what his FEMA is doing.
Right.
Okay, they need to put down the bomb. They're crazy over there.
The devil's lettuce for sure. Yeah, look, it doesn't take into consideration. Obviously, the Great Wall is built in New Orleans, and we've spent a lot of money down here with levees that have protected us against the most recent storms, and we didn't flood. When you're talking about in Lafourche Parish and Terrebonne Parish and all, so we haven't had to use those resources of flood money because we hadn't been flooding over the last ones because we protected ourselves.
Well, yeah. And I asked FEMA in a hearing, I said, look, show me your new algorithm, your secret sauce, so I can have somebody evaluate it to see if you're giving us credit for our levies. Right. Oh, they said, oh, no, we can't show it to you. It's secret.
Yeah, it's all elevation, I'm sure.
We'd have to kill you.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just elevation.
We'd have to kill you.
Right.
Well, that's not acceptable.
Right.
Okay, this is taxpayer money they're spending running FEMA.
Right. So, that's something to look forward to. And again, that affects
we're
businesses.
not giving up.
Right. Thank you.
We're not giving up, Harry. I'm going to chase these people like they stole Christmas. I'm just telling you, we're not giving up. We're pounding them every day until, at a minimum, they come to the table and look our people in the eye and explain what's going on. Because they just raise rates 18% a year, each and every year, and say, we can't tell you why, just shut up and pay it. That's
absolutely
not acceptable.
No, so obviously, besides just having to pay that every year, also the cost of the housing, the value in your home is going to go down as well. So you lose money on both sides. So yeah, it's a big deal. So anything else? Obviously, we were looking at. It looks like.
Well, if he's listening, I would. President Biden on this flood insurance issue. President Biden happens to be a Democrat. Governor John Bel Edwards is a Democrat. They're good friends. If Governor John Bel Edwards is listening, I wish John Bel would pick up the phone and call the president and say, "What in God's name are your people at FEMA doing? Do you understand what they're doing to Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama and Florida and frankly some areas of California and New York and New Jersey?" I mean, I can't get the president on the phone. We're different parties, but Governor Edwards can, and he needs to be on that telephone pleading our case.
Yeah, look, water goes all the way around our country, all the way up the coast, and obviously there's a big Mississippi Valley that goes right down the middle. So yeah, there's water, as you said. 50% of the people live in a close proximity to water, so this affects everyone for sure.
And my people, our people. We're not talking about people living like in California in a $5 million home on the beach.
Right.
My people, our people that we're talking about, these are working people. If they've got an income, say, of $70,000 a year, and their flood insurance goes to $5,000 a year, they can't afford that. That's just one of many expenses that they have.
Yeah.
So, Governor Edwards, if you're listening, please call the president and talk some sense into him.
Yes, indeed. Well, Senator, I appreciate you for joining us. Continue the good fight in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Hope to see you soon, man.
Okay. We'll be right back with more Bayou Time after this.